tonight, reaction to the province's decision to pause changes to the junior high school curriculum. That story, and
you can see it and most definitely hear it from almost any viewpoint in Brook.
It's clearly an important economic part of our west coast and our province.
So it has a large impact here. You're talking about thousands of jobs.
I'm Colleen Connors, and I'll bring you local reaction tonight from the NL Hydro power agreement with the Brook Pulp and Paper Mill.
We counsel on the various pain control options, as I was trained to do, but I do know that that is not the standard in the province.
One St. John's doctor says she always tries to manage a patient's pain when getting an IUD, but that's not standard practice.
We want to set up some mental health wellness, with the horses, but namely starring Sheamus. And again, it's the social nature of donkeys and the sweetness of him.
I'm here with Sheamus, the future therapy donkey. We'll have that story from Pound Cove coming up tonight.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Welcome to Here and Now. We begin with reaction to government's decision to pause proposed changes to the junior high school curriculum, changes that prompted plenty of negative feedback from teachers and students. As the CBC's Jenna Head reports, opposition parties welcome the news.
For the province, it's back to the drawing board. A pilot project that would have seen some subjects become fully or partially optional for junior high students is on pause, after the proposal sparked criticism from parents and students.
Announcements and photo ops without the details, without the proper consultation, is starting to show now. I think it's indicative of how this government has approached many things, and if you take education alone, they came up with a reconfiguration of PwC, did a consultation but made no changes. They came out with a cell phone policy, said we're going to do this, but an outcry from students managed to change that. So we see the same thing here.
For now, social studies, French, music, and art will stay mandatory for junior high students. Making those courses optional would be a mistake, says Din.
And especially when you talk about the year of the arts, and here we're cutting this out. It makes no sense. It's hypocritical, really.
The NDP agrees that the changes wouldn't benefit students. Party leader Jim Din says in his personal experience, students in grades 7 to 9 are too young to choose their courses.
If I had said, to my oldest daughter who teaches at the Francophone schools, hey, you have a choice, of doing French or not, she probably wouldn't be teaching there.
Before making curriculum changes, Din says more pressing issues should be tackled within the school system, like violence in the classroom.
The minister talked about a task force, a think tank, and then came up with the brilliant idea of the education accord, NL. And yet we haven't addressed those other issues. So I said now it was a distraction. I say now it is a distraction from the real work that they need to be doing.
Both opposition members are happy to see the government pause its proposal while they get more feedback from those impacted by the changes. The window to provide feedback to the province has been extended until March 21st. Jenna Head, CBC News, St. John's.
Staying with education news, CUPE, the union representing public employees, is walking away from the Education Accord. This comes after MUN's Faculty Association also withdrew from the accord last month. The accord was created last January to address problems in the province's education system. Now, one of its co-chairs says that backlash could weaken the final report.
From my perspective, they must be misunderstanding the purpose of the accord and confusing that with government and operations. That's not part of what we've been asked to do, to influence operations and to make decisions around operations in government. It's not our role. So there must be some confusion there, unless there's another reason we're not aware of that they've decided at this very late point to withdraw from the accord. They have been part of it. I just want to say that we thank them, for their involvement in the accord, and we are disappointed that they walked away.
To Corner Brook now, where community leaders are speaking out about a contract between NL Hydro and Deer Lake Power, which sees Hydro buy power for nearly twice the average domestic rate to keep the city's paper mill from crumbling. But people in the community believe the mill will be around for years to come. Here Now's Colleen Connors has more.
Full steam ahead for the Corner Brook pulp and paper mill. If you can't hear the hum in the downtown, then you can see trucks and trucks of wood filling the mill yard. But NL Hydro says it's buying electricity it doesn't need from Kruger-owned Deer Lake Power at an inflated rate, all to keep the mill up and running. The city's mayor disagrees that the power agreement is a handout. He says the high rate is what you pay for this kind of thing.
It's been characterized, I guess, as some kind of subsidy or handout. I think that's really unfair. The mill has provided power to NL Hydro many times. They're a very stable backup when they have problems elsewhere.
Hydro paid Kruger $22 million for power between January and July last year, and that agreement has since been extended to March. All with the caveat that Kruger would look into diversifying its operations, getting away from newsprint and focusing on specialty products made from the wood pulp fiber. The company says that work is ongoing. The mill employs 425 people, with average salaries at $80,000, plus all that work in the forest industry. For business owners in this area, the mill is the reason for being.
You have about a 3-to-1 multiplier for businesses that work and support the mill. So if you have 400 employees, that's about 1,200 people that are working in the community to support those 400 people. Plus you have these, as we talked about, these other sectors. You have people that work in logging, forestry, trucking, all around western Newfoundland and in through central Newfoundland that support the mill, and the mill supports them. So it has a large impact here. You're talking about thousands of jobs.
No one with the province will talk about the future of this mill or how much further the province is willing to go to support it. The power agreement is up in March.
I know that the Kruger has been talking to the province about their plans. I know that they're looking to diversify. They've expressed to me that they have a long-term commitment to the city and to employment in the city. So I think that this will all work out.
The mill has been here for nearly 100 years, and the mayor believes that there will be employment and mill operations here for decades and decades to come. The first step, to see if this agreement gets extended past March. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
And still on the West Coast, Corner Brook's Western Memorial Regional Hospital is getting 5 new dialysis machines. That's with the help of just over $100,000 from the province. The health department says the investment is based on a health accord recommendation to place more emphasis on chronic disease management. The machines will also allow more scheduling flexibility to meet patients' needs. It's not clear when the machines will be up and running. Well, some Canadian doctors say IUDs can be an effective first line of defense for birth control. But some patients in this province are concerned not everyone receives the same standard of care, especially when it comes to pain management. The CBC's Sarah Antle reports.
The pill, the shot, the ring. Just some of the options when it comes to contraception. The intrauterine device, or the IUD, is another. It's implanted into the uterus and can be effective for 5 to 10 years. Canadian doctors recommend it as the first line of defense. Avery Brown of Labrador was recommended an IUD a few years ago. She says she was warned she'd feel a little pressure during the procedure, but what she felt was a whole lot worse.
I was pretty young when I had it done. I was 19, and there was not a lot of communication with me when I started, so they said it was going to be like a slight pinch, that this was like the best thing that I could do for my reproductive health at the time.
Brown says it took 3 traumatic attempts over 3 visits, and her healthcare provider didn't seem sympathetic. Brown says she felt like the pain and discomfort she was feeling was her fault.
It's such a vulnerable procedure, so to be in that position and then also be then told that like your experience is not what's happening was very off-putting and very stressful, I think.
And she's not the only one. Dozens of women have shared their stories with CBC NL. Many say their experience was a lot more painful than expected. Others didn't go in feeling prepared, while some did feel informed.
It's truly been the only thing that has helped regulate my periods, help with pain management. I do still get a regular period, but it's much, much lighter than previous. So for me, I would absolutely get another one.
Getting an IUD inserted was uncomfortable for Shannon Driscoll, but she says she felt supported by her doctor, who checked in with her throughout the procedure. She's been through the process twice and plans to stick with it.
I know what to expect with those inserts. Mine have been not great, but like I said, definitely worth, again, 1 day and maybe 20 minutes of discomfort, definitely outweighing the 5 years then of having lighter periods, less symptoms, less pain every single month, which is definitely worth it.
Despite two very different experiences, both women agree. Every patient should know what will happen before, during, and after any medical procedure. Dr. Kelly Monahan specializes in women's and LGBTQ health. She wants to make patient comfort a priority. She also wants to take pain and past trauma into account.
When I meet with somebody who's had a previous IUD experience or gynecological trauma or sexual trauma or a lived experience that makes this difficult, we counsel on the various pain control options as I was trained to do. But I do know that that is not the standard in the province.
Monahan says there's a few reasons for this. Doctor compensation in the province for IUD inserts is below the national rate. And with the rush to see as many patients as possible, one-on-one care can fall by the wayside.
So I try to counsel people in a way that doesn't, mansplain or patronize, you'll be fine, or dismissing their fears. I try to validate them because some people do have awful experiences and they have told me about them and have felt like they were the problem, that they were unable to cope.
Monahan says every patient is different, and she wants healthcare providers to validate those different experiences. Sarah Antle, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, there's more fallout tonight from an incident last month at the Whiffen Head Oil Transshipment Terminal. ExxonMobil Canada has confirmed reduced production in the Hibernia and Hebron oil fields because of a shortage of shuttle tankers and harsh weather conditions. The company is not providing any other details. It's the latest consequence of a collision in late January when a shuttle tanker filled with crude slammed into the wharf at the terminal near Arnold's Cove, causing significant damage to one of the two jetties that allows ships to load and offload cargo. Only one tanker has been able to dock at Whiffen Head since the collision, which is still being investigated. Well, to the arts now. A St. John's music teacher is one of 4 artists nominated for a 2025 Juno Award. Robert Colburn directs 3 choirs at Holy Heart of Mary High School. His colleagues and students have nominated him for the Music Counts Teacher of the Year Award. Colburn says music teaches students more than just how to sing or play an instrument.
It's so much more than just the music. Music gives students a creative outlet, and it gives them an opportunity to show their compassion and their caring, and it teaches them teamwork and leadership. And as I look over to these wonderful young leaders here who are in the studio with us, all of these things are things that they're getting through music. Yes, I teach the chords, and yes, I teach the harmonies and the solfege and all of those things that go along with choral music, but to me, it's so much more than that. It's building up young people and using the art of music and any of the arts to kind of give students more of make them more human, I guess, and more comfortable with how they're going to be as they graduate.
We have some milder air in place, some milder marine air, especially up across parts of Labrador. That area of low pressure now well offshore, but still seeing some flurries, even some snow squalls for parts of the south coast, and then we still have some ongoing snow for parts of the Green Bay, White Bay area. Now, taking a look at the temperature difference over the last 24 hours, temperatures very different, much colder in the east, whereas temperatures are starting to warm up a little bit, especially for areas like Port aux Basques, even up across parts of Labrador as well. If you take a look at the difference in the normal temperature for this time of year, it's quite dramatic, nearly 13 degrees warmer in Happy Valley Goose Bay. I'll break it all down for you coming up a little later.
Well, having a donkey for a pet might not be for everyone, but for a family in Pound Cove, it's the perfect fit. And they have big plans to spread the joy Sheamus the donkey is bringing to their lives. Here now's Troy Turner paid them a visit.
He's living life large. Although Sheamus is only 5 months old, he gets this barn to himself, for now anyway. Sheamus joined Dana Blackmore's little farm from New Brunswick last month after she saw him online.
I knew I wanted a donkey, but I had no idea how good he would be or how sweet he would be. And I honestly think if we trailered him up today and took him up to, one of our long-term care facilities, that it wouldn't be an issue.
And that's what Blackmore hopes to train Sheamus for, working as a therapy animal to help people cope with whatever's going on in their lives, or just bring a little happiness to someone who needs it.
He's going to have a role to play in, in bringing some smiles to some faces. And I think at this time in our current lives and current affairs, it's really well needed.
First step in his training, getting used to life out and inside the home.
So, that he sees doors open and close. He's very comfortable with people and children and other animals. And I tell you, he's amazing. He comes in, he's very comfortable, it was surprising. I mean, how calm he is. And so we take him in. He kind of has walked around the house. The routine that he's already established for himself is hilarious. Like, he'll go into the house. He knows he'll walk directly to the patio door. He'll come in, he'll do a little roll. He'll go to the fridge for a carrot. And then he comes back and makes himself comfortable on the rug.
And not just that, Sheamus is also becoming an internet sensation, building up quite the following online through his owner's social media accounts. But Blackmore has some advice for anyone feeling inspired to have their own Sheamus.
Since the social media, a lot of people have suggested that they might like to have a house donkey. When you look at it on the videos, that it's an easy thing to do, but it's a lot of work. It's a major commitment.
So what's next in store for Sheamus? Well, he's going to meet his new herd, which includes 2 horses and a mule. And then after that, there will be a new barn, and with that will come a chance for people in the area to come meet him. Troy Turner, CBC News, Pound Cove.
That's so sweet. Such a tiny little donkey, my goodness. Well, in other news, Captain Matthew Cox says the videos just don't do it justice. The aircraft commander helped hoist crew members from a cargo vessel in Cedar Cove on the island's west coast, which stranded there on Saturday. His team knew it was going to be a challenging rescue, but Cox says the mission had him drawing on all his prior training.
When I first got the call, they were 9 miles offshore. And then when we were halfway, they were 5 miles offshore. And by the time we got there, we assumed they would be within half mile or a quarter mile of shore. It was going to be a very challenging hoist no matter what. The winds were, if I remember correctly, 40 to 50 knots. Hoisting to vessels and hoisting to land are different for a variety of reasons. But this one was especially challenging because of the skills that we use in both. The crew and myself had to blend a lot of the procedures. What I had to do as the flying pilot on the right-hand side of the cockpit, I had to trim the helicopter out and basically hand fly from start to finish, which was probably one of the most challenging things I've done as a pilot in my career. And my first officer was a very experienced AC as well. And it was great to have his experience to back me up. And the crew is also a very experienced crew. It really helps that we train so hard, and we train in a variety of ways that we can certainly get to this new and novel situation. I'm just happy we were able to take people off. They were very happy, very happy to get off, relieved. Certainly when we got back to Deer Lake, they shook our hands and made sure that they passed along their thanks, and it was pretty special to see. Yeah, fathers and brothers just able to go back to their families, which is pretty awesome.
Well, Ashley, the wintry weather continues, but some places are seeing some milder temperatures.
Yeah, and we have some rain in the mix at some points today as well, especially up across Labrador. Let's take a look at the setup, because where this area of low pressure offshore is right now is bringing in some more milder marine air, especially up across parts of Labrador. So this is an area of low pressure offshore. The jet stream to the south now kind of just, this acts like a conveyor belt moving systems across the world, essentially. So that is sitting south of us at the moment. But as that area of low pressure moves offshore, we'll see a little bit of a ridge in the jet stream a little bit, but we've got another area of low pressure developing, and that one, by the time we get into Friday, could bring some weather, especially for eastern areas of the island. So definitely going to keep an eye on that system. We still have a snowfall warning in place right now for the Green Bay, White Bay area. We've been seeing snow most of today, and that will continue for the next little bit as we see that onshore flow continue for you. That's really the story. But if we just zoom in a little bit for the Avalon, we've been seeing snow squalls at times, some of them fairly persistent this afternoon. But as those winds shifted this evening, we saw a little bit of a change. Those snow squalls have now broken apart, but we are still seeing some flurries and light snow. And we'll continue to see that as we head through tonight with that system, as it continues to bring snow for parts of Labrador, and then coastal areas seeing that with some rain in the mix because of that milder air. So keep an eye on the coast, the northeast coast, where we will see flurries or light snow continue through the night tonight, maybe even potentially reaching the Avalon as well. But what will happen is, as we head towards tomorrow morning, we're going to see the temperatures actually warm up. So right now is some of the coldest air that we'll see, at least for the next 24 hours. But by the time we get into tomorrow morning, again, expect the potential for some flurries or showers along the northeast coast. But the good news is the weather will actually improve for most of us as we head through the day tomorrow. It has been a fairly stormy couple of days, but we'd likely still see some onshore flurry activity for parts of the west coast. But generally some sunshine should come out, especially up across parts of Labrador. Again, maybe a few flurries in the mix, but overall the weather will quiet down as we head through the day, which will be a nice different day than what we've been seeing for the last little bit. Now, as far as how much is left to fall for snowfall, generally about 2 to 5 centimeters, not a whole lot, but depending on where we see some of those bands of snow set up, you could pick up between 2 to 5 centimeters by the time we get into tomorrow morning. But that should be the most of it. Maybe even on the west coast as well. You may pick up a little bit, but a different story, though, from the snow squalls that we've been seeing really for the last little bit, for those of you on the west coast just getting buried with that snow. Here's your temperatures for tonight. Like I said, warming up around 0 or even +1 for the east. And it's going to be windy still. So still looking at snow and blowing snow. Northwesterlies will be gusting anywhere from about 40 to as much as 70 kilometers per hour. For you, otherwise, winds will be out of the north or northwest around 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. And then as far as the temperatures go for tomorrow, we'll likely see temperatures between 2 to about 4 degrees in the east as our daytime highs. So again, don't be surprised if you see some drizzle or even showers in the mix there. Now through central, few flurries potentially, but around 0 or even +2. The west coast, you're looking at temperatures hovering around the 0 degree mark. For the northern peninsula, a little bit below there. but much nicer weather, even some sunshine in the mix. Now, across Labrador, again, much milder air, unseasonably warm air expected to continue through tomorrow and even the next day, with daytime highs sitting into the minus single digits, and northwesterly winds in the west will be gusting between 30 to 50. Now, again, watching the potential for a system on Friday for eastern Newfoundland. I'll break that down for you coming up a little later in the show.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, colder temperatures may keep many people indoors, but for one St. John's woman, this is the perfect season to hit the trails. In this video for the CBC Creator Network, she takes us through tips on how to make winter running a little less intimidating and a lot more fun.
Hi, my name's Ange States. I'm a marathoner and a fitness instructor living in St. John's. Now, this is 100% an unpopular opinion, but I do think that running in the winter is sometimes the best time of year to get out for a run. I know it can be super intimidating to run outside in the winter. It's cold, it's snowy, but I promise with the right tips and the right gear, it's a lot easier and way more fun than it sounds. So how do you actually get started? Well, first things first, let's talk layers. Have you heard that saying, there's no bad weather, only bad clothing? Well, that is very true when it comes to running outside in the winter. So I start with long pants, 10 out of 10 recommend fleece lined ones, and next, pick out a long sleeve base layer. It doesn't need to be anything too thick, just something that goes to waist length. Now for the most important step, tuck your shirt into your pants. Temporarily, you are going to look the least cool you've ever looked in your life, but trust me, this is so important. When you actually start running, your clothing will move up and down, and there is truly nothing worse than freezing cold air hitting your stomach and lower back during a run. Now the next step is accessories. Winter season is buff season. A buff is kind of like a tube scarf that's stretchy and warm, and these are super versatile. It's really important to keep your neck and ears warm during a run, and buffs are great for covering both. Up next, we have our jacket. It's good to find a thicker one that protects against wind and is water resistant. Layer that over your long sleeve and you're almost good to go. Now, what do we do with our hands? I cannot tell you how many times I've made the mistake of telling myself I don't need mittens or gloves on a run because surely my hands are going to warm up. Yeah, they do not. Your fingers will stay cold the entire time. So please learn from my mistakes and wear mittens or gloves. Up next, to make sure we start out on the right foot, we have footwear. A lot of people wonder if they should wear winter boots outside running in the snow, and the answer is no. Boots aren't made for running. Yes, they do keep your feet warm and they have good grip in snow, but they don't offer the proper support you need for an outdoor run. Wearing your regular running shoes is totally fine for an outdoor run in the winter. Just pick a path that's plowed and slow down in snowy patches. If you're like me though and you want a little more grip in the snow, you can get little cleats that actually slip on over your shoes. They're really easy to put on, and they have small spikes that dig into the snow and ice, so it gives you a little bit more grip when you're running. I will warn you though, if you run the pavement with these on and not in the snow, you will sound like a horse galloping. Okay, so you've got your clothing, you've got your shoes, but where do we actually find the motivation to start the run? Well, here are 3 things that you can do to get yourself up and outside for a run in the winter months. Number 1, set yourself up for success. A little RDF is not bad, and honestly, it's to be expected where we live. But don't go outside for a run in the pouring rain or a blizzard in the winter. Instead, dress warm and pick a day that's relatively clear. Number 2, do a warm-up inside. Doing a warm-up helps prevent injury. Plus, if you do it inside during the winter, it gets your body temperature up before you actually have to go outside into the cold. And number 3, run with other people. Regardless of the temperature, running with other people is always more fun. But it's also nice to have that support. So in the winter, I love running with friends or my run club at least once a week. We always finish at a coffee shop and have warm hot chocolates and coffees after the run. And that's it. Now you're ready for your next winter run.
Well, these days, staying informed about world events can come at a cost. There's a lot of heavy news to wade through, whether it be threats to our country's economy and sovereignty from our southern neighbors, or the ongoing turmoil in places like Gaza and Ukraine, or the climate crisis. We're living in turbulent and uncertain times, and it can take a toll on a person's mental health. So let's talk about that. Joining me now is Dr. Kati Kamkar, a clinical psychologist in Toronto. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So this idea of people getting swept up in the news cycle isn't new, but things are feeling especially uncertain at the moment. And I'm wondering whether it's anecdotally or from your own patients, what do you think this is all doing to people's well-being?
Yes, this is such an important conversation, especially now when, again, so many people might feel overwhelmed, right, by the state of the world, whether, again, we're talking about conflicts, economic uncertainty, climate change, social unrest, and so on. We do know through our research literature that these stressors can have a profound impact on our health, on our mental health, but there are also ways to navigate them more effectively as well. Well, first of all, in terms of going back again to your question about how any of those events and global events can impact our mental health, well, we know studies find in terms of the increased anxiety and uncertainty, right? So when we feel an ongoing sense of unpredictability, this we know uncertainty can very much fuel anxiety. So this constant exposure at times to, again, distressing events, to distressing news and so on, can make the world seem like an unsafe place at times. And so that could lead to feeling more the sense of heightened fear about the future. There is also the emotional exhaustion and burnout at times that might take place. So people might feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of maybe crisis happening simultaneously. So that might lead to emotional exhaustion, feelings of hopelessness, and also feeling like helplessness, feeling powerless, or even apathy sometimes.
Is it possible for someone to be affected by all of this and not even really realize it themselves? Like, what are some of the red flags for people to watch out for in terms of our own feelings and behaviors?
Yes, we know that, again, any emotions that we might experience, stress or anxiety, a host of other emotions, it's very much a mind-body connection. It has an impact on us cognitively, so our thought processes, physical reactions, our emotions, our behaviors. And sometimes we might recognize it, but sometimes it might not recognize it right away, and we might be entrenched in that cycle. Of course, the sooner we become aware of any changes in our emotions, in our physical reactions, in our actions, our behaviors, what we used to do or not do, or anything that maybe even people might tell us that they notice changes in us, then again, it's a sign that, oh, let me do something so that I can engage in healthier coping strategies. And there are a lot of healthy coping strategies that we can engage in. How can I engage in changing my perspective? It's not going from a negative thought to a positive thinking, but it's more from a negative thinking to a more realistic, balanced thinking. So because our thoughts influence our emotions, right? So if there is a belief that, oh, the world is falling apart, then it's going to lead to emotions of feeling overwhelmed, feeling maybe even powerless. So reframing our thought to, while challenges exist, I also know people are working towards solutions. And so the more balanced our perspective can be, then it's easier for us to even contain and regulate our emotions. And so very much focusing on what I have control over, rather than, again, ruminating and dwelling on the things that I do not have control over. And that can also take us to the next strategy, which is also managing the information intake. How can I set healthy boundaries? And healthy boundaries is very individualized, and it depends on our own tolerance level, to stress, noise, and people. So it could be, let's say, let me set my consumption in terms of all those debates, in terms of all those news and information, to maybe I'm fine 20 minutes every day, 2 hours every day, to now, you know what, here's a Friday and a weekend, let me just engage in those light information comedy shows to really take a rest. What activities help me to my everyday life? It could be volunteering, it could be donating, community discussions, social support activities with friends. It could be, again, exercise, hobbies. Very important to engage in those meaningful activities every day so that we can also help to boost our emotional resilience. And that leads us to self-compassion. How can I treat myself with kindness, with my self-care? And so instead of, again, criticizing the self, it's really acknowledging our sense of self and our emotions with kindness.
Yes, finding joy where you can. Dr. Kadi Kamkar, that is some fantastic advice. Thank you so much for your time.
I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Well, the annual inflation rate rose slightly in the month of January from 1.8 to 1.9%, according to new data from StatsCan. It says higher energy costs were to blame for notching up the inflation rate, which rose 5.3%. That sizable jump was offset by the federal government's tax holiday. The GST break led to lower prices for food, alcohol, and clothing. But with the tax holiday now over, economists warn energy prices may have a larger impact on inflation in the months ahead. Well, 2 diplomats from Russia and the U.S. met in Saudi Arabia to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. They did so, however, without Ukrainian officials at the table. Both sides met for more than 4 hours. It's the first face-to-face meeting between Moscow and Washington officials since Russia's invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago. No breakthrough was made, but U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says they agreed to hold more talks and to focus on reestablishing their own relations. It's a marked diplomatic shift in approach from the previous U.S. administration. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky restated that his country would not accept any peace plan without Kyiv present at the negotiating table. He added that he would not agree to surrender any territory. An investigation into what caused yesterday's dramatic crash landing at Toronto's Pearson International Airport is in full swing. Multiple agencies are trying to figure out if winter weather was to blame or something entirely different. The CBC's Nicole Williams reports.
The terrifying moment the Delta Airlines plane came crashing down.
All of a sudden, I just remember being fully sideways.
Oh, no. New cell phone video shows it coming down hard, catching fire, skidding forward, and flipping over.
I was looking down and just seeing like sparks and flames and whatever was grinding against the ground. And then, it happened pretty dang quick, and we were just upside down hanging from our seatbelts.
Plumes of smoke rising into the air before crews arrived to douse the flames.
Drop it! Come on!
All 80 people on board coming from Minneapolis alive, but 21 were injured and taken to hospital, including 1 child. Delta confirming all but 2 have since been released, many treated for head and back injuries and fuel exposure. Dozens of investigators now on site from the Transportation Safety Board of Canada and the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration to try and determine what went wrong.
On Thursday and Sunday, we got more than 20 inches, 50 centimeters of accumulated snow.
The airport's CEO says it was a brutal week for air travel, 2 snowstorms paralyzing hundreds of flights over the last week.
Monday was a clear day, though, and it was an operational recovery day for Toronto Pearson.
Tower, wind 270-23, gust 33, clear to line on 823, you might get a slight bump.
But this audio from air traffic control that day was warning pilots of tricky conditions on the runway.
You might get a slight bump in the glide path, there'll be an aircraft in front of it.
Winter airports, gusty conditions, it becomes more challenging. So
Make no mistake about it.
The fuselage of the plane is expected to remain on the tarmac for at least 2 days, forcing the closure of 2 of the airport's 5 runways to give investigators time to get to the bottom of the crash before it will be cleared away. More than 400 flights were canceled yesterday because of the plane crash, and that is on top of the ballooning backlog already created because of the 2 winter storms we had this past week. So airport officials are saying to expect delays in the days ahead and to check your flight status before you head to the airport. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, many take it for granted, getting outside, hitting the trails and connecting with nature. But for some, navigating the great outdoors can present accessibility challenges. On the country's west coast, a new trail is now aiming to eliminate some barriers for people who are visually impaired. The CBC's Claire Palmer takes us there.
This is Heather Hutchinson. Blind since birth, she's happy to be out on the trails.
Yeah, it definitely gives me a sense of independence. I feel like I could navigate out here by myself. It's very freeing.
Hutchison is able to enjoy the trail using this, a tapping rail, a low barrier on the side of the trail that she can use to help guide her cane. She says it's a game changer.
We know how important it is for people to get out in nature for mental and physical well-being. And so I'm super excited to find a place created for me that I can access.
Advocates say small changes like this are crucial for independence and accessibility. The Canadian National Institute for the Blind says accessibility is sometimes only thought of when things are necessities and not always for recreational purposes.
When we need to make things accessible, there's a big focus on the word need. So, what are the essential services that people have to have? I think also we can make the argument, though, make the case that quality of life is essential.
It's more than a want, really. It's a need. We need to be out in nature. We need the same access to information and places and activities as everybody else. We need to be out with our friends, with our families. So to me, it's not even that much of a want. It is a need.
The RDN says it's just one of many projects they're working on to make their trails more accessible.
We'll have barrier-free park systems so that people can enjoy the beautiful parks that we have. Many sights to see, many features, water access, ramps to get down to the water and beach areas.
Increasing accessibility in its parks was just one priority outlined in the RDN's Parks and Trail Strategy, which was completed in 2022 after public consultation. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Qualicum.
Doesn't look too injured or anything.
Their numbers are dropping. Dedicated researchers are doing what they can to find out why. Watch Safeguarding Seabirds, Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
All right, so time for a look at the long-range forecast. And you mentioned earlier that Friday might be a little bit messy.
Yeah, there's a chance. There's a couple of models that are saying, yes, we'll see some snow, and others that are saying it's just going to be some flurries. So we'll,
have to get closer to it.
That's only a couple days away, but still. Let's take a look at what's going on as we get there, though. So through the evening on Wednesday, finally, we can take a breath where weather will be quiet for a little while. We'll likely just see some clouds on the increase as the day goes on, especially for those of you in the west. You may see a few onshore flurries here and there, but there should be some sunshine at points during the day, especially up across Labrador as we start to see a ridge of high pressure edge in a little bit and that area of low pressure move off, which will actually, we're not going to see a whole lot of wind either, which will be nice. Temperatures will sit even a little bit above zero for those of you in the east, central, west coast, northern peninsula. You're looking at temperatures between -2 and -4 as your daytime highs. And those temperatures still well above where you should be sitting this time of year up across Labrador, with daytime highs in the minus single digits. And again, some sunshine in the mix, with the exception of a few flurries possible for those of you along the mid-coast. Now, as we head into Friday morning, here is that area of low pressure that I was talking about. Now, exactly the track of this system is what is where the disagreement is at the moment. So if we see that track with this model in particular, looks like we will see some snow, particularly the eastern half of the island may see some snow with this system. And at that point, it could be more than 10 centimeters if we see a track this close. Again, there is a ton of spread in the data. There are some that only have us in flurries and some that have us in some snowfall. Overall, the winds will be a little breezy. We're still talking about winds gusting between 30 to 50, maybe even 60 kilometers per hour. But other than that, the weather will be quiet, especially for those of you on the west coast, minus single digits. And then Labrador, you're looking at the potential for some sunshine. And again, temperatures will be in the minus single digits or even minus double digits. So for now, I have some snow in the forecast for Friday. Regardless, we'll see some flurries. It's just how much snow we see, and it will move through fairly quickly. By the time we get into Saturday, still looking at some flurries, minus single digits. That'll be the story for Sunday as well. For central Newfoundland, quiet weather as we head towards the weekend, and western Newfoundland, just a few flurries in the mix there as well, with temperatures in the minus single digits. Labrador, nice stretch of weather with some sunshine and a little cooler for those of you in Lab West. Our weather photo of the day taken in St. John's. It's actually Middle Cove Beach. There has been some incredible wave action.
Yeah.
And thank you for that. Lorraine, if you have any weather photos that you'd like to share with us, you can do that by sending them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Just gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful photo, Lorraine. Thank you so much for that. And I can't get over the temperatures. I mean, above zero tomorrow.
Yeah, here, for a couple of days we've been dealing with much colder air.
Yeah.
So it'll be a nice little break. Hopefully be able to clean off the driveway. And
maybe a little bit of melting of the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
We can get out and enjoy it too, which is nice. Those wind chills.
Brutal. Yeah.
Hard
But
to
it's
go
not
out and enjoy.
Labrador.
No, but it is hard to go out and enjoy the snow that fell, right? You want to go out. The dogs don't like it. They hate their jackets.
They're lifting their paws off the ground. It's too cold.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for watching.
Good night.